In the last video, I was completely blindsided by some horrific looking print defects coming from my X1C printer, and it was pretty embarrassing, to be honest with you. Now, some of you commented that you have as many as 6,000 print hours on your X1 or X1C printers, and they're still printing great, and I have less than a third of those hours on mine. So that gives me quite a bit of confidence that we can actually solve this problem. So let's get the X1C printing like new again by finding and fixing the source of the terrible print defects. And we're going to do it in such a way so if you have a problem like this, you'll know exactly what to look for and what to adjust yourself so you're back up and running quick. So stick around. So these are my prints from the last video from the X1C, and as you can see, it looks like very inconsistent extrusion. Now these were printed 2 parts at a time with some dried basic PETG. I printed the exact same filament on my P2S and the H2D, and both of them turned out really clean and smooth. So this is a problem specifically with the X1C printer here. At first glance, it looks like it could be an extrusion issue, but if we move to the sides, they're far smoother. It's still possible that this filament isn't extruding that well, and I have seen this in the past with some PLA filaments. Printing too fast will produce an inconsistent extrusion. But if that were the case, we would see probably the same issue on the sides and the front and back. Unfortunately, I'm getting a little bit too low on the basic blue PETG, so I'm going to switch over. I'm going to use this basic green PETG. It's the same stuff, just a different color. And because this likes to absorb moisture, I have made sure that it's very well dried. And we'll see if we can produce the exact same issue again. Now, I haven't changed anything on the printer either, nothing at all. So to make sure the print is a little bit quicker, I removed the top. We don't really need to see that anyway. So the prints have finished. Let's see if we have the same issue. The lighting that I have is all top-down lighting, so this will make any part look kind of bad. And that's the point. So a lot of comments will say, your parts look awful. Well, the whole point of making these testing videos is that I accentuate the defects so that we can actually identify them properly. If you had this in regular lighting, you just really wouldn't be able to tell that much is going wrong at all. So top-down lighting, you can really see any sort of little defect. Now this one was printed at standard speed, just a single object. So this is just printed on its own, and actually it's quite smooth. And the results are pretty good. There's a little tiny line across here, but that could have been because it lifted a little bit off of the build plate. So I will just ignore that little line. But the rest of it isn't too bad at all. Now, this didn't move off of the object. It would continue to print upward, not moving away and coming back. So that's why we needed to print 2 at a time. So these are the ones that are printed 2 at a time, and you can see quite a bit more of an issue. Both left and right are smoother than the front and the back, and that seems to be consistent on both this one, which is the standard speed, and this one, which was the slower progressively. So I've had this printer for a couple of years. Most of the prints that I make are test prints, so they're kind of small. So I haven't really racked up the total amount of time on this printer. But what I want to do first is I actually want to clean it just to make sure that that can eliminate that possibility. I don't think cleaning is going to make a big difference, but I just want to do that one step, and we'll actually reprint those same parts again to see if it did anything at all. So the first step is to clean off the carbon fiber rods, and we're going to be doing that with some isopropyl alcohol. And I've watched a little bit of Bambu's instructions, and they suggest wetting the upper and lower rods down with isopropyl and then using a microfiber cloth. So those remain completely dry. We're not going to apply anything at all to that, but we do need to do the exact same thing for all the steel rods as well. Okay, I'm going to turn it on, and then I'm going to do the Z lead screws. Put a bit of isopropyl on there, and I'll get all 3 on. And you can see there, got quite a bit of that And I'll just do the exact same thing again, but I'm gonna move the bed down first. Now for the grease, I actually like to use a brush and apply it. You don't necessarily need to do this, you can just dab it on and it will automatically spread out as you use it, but I prefer to use the brush and pre-spread it. That's just my technique. Now I was using lithium grease, but this is actually the Bambu grease, so we're gonna go with the Bambu approved one. Okay, and some oil. I've already spread it out a little bit here on the Y, just by moving this forward and backward. With the cleaning all done, we can go ahead and reprint the exact same models. I'm only going to do the two at one time because the single by itself really was a lot cleaner and there's no point in focusing any more attention on that one. This was before cleaning. Let's take a look at the ones after cleaning. And you can see there is basically no difference. Again, I will say the sides do look smoother than the front and back. So again, not good enough when we're printing two at a time. All right, so first let's get this printer turned off. I'm gonna get the AMS disconnected. I do like that button at the back, which makes it super easy to disconnect. We are gonna tilt this printer upside down. So I have dropped this glass quite a few times. Make sure you take the glass off. Don't do what I do. Luckily, I've got some carpet on the floor and it's still in one piece. So normally when you take a look at the belt tension, you would adjust all of the belts at the same time, but I don't want to do it that way. I'd like to do one by one. So it's going to take me a little bit longer to do that, but I think it's important to be able to understand where the problem actually lies. So right now, if I feel the belt tension on the bottom, it feels pretty loose, but I tried to look up some stats on the belt tension and there is no actual number that you can reference. There is a spring in here, so what we're gonna do is loosen off the screw, we'll let the spring tension take over, and then see what it gets to. This is made by Beachu, and it is a belt tension measurement device. Pull the belt down a little bit, just so we can get hooked on. We will release that tension again. .63 maybe. I'll take another measurement. So we want to have the plunger going against the flat side of the belt here. 4.29 millimeters, so that doesn't actually mean a lot on its own, but Beachu has a spreadsheet you can plug those numbers into. You need to plug in your belt type, so the type of belt being the GT2 belt, and because there are other types of belts and the width of the belts are also different in some cases. So we're about 4.32, 4.4, somewhere around that mark. So we'll plug that number in to the spreadsheet. I will leave a link down there below to that spreadsheet if you want to do the same, if you happen to have one of these as well. So I plugged in 4.4 millimeters into the Beachu calculator and I came up with no number because it's so low it doesn't even register. So that's a major problem. It could be one of the contributing factors. Before I change anything though, I really want to know what the right reading is for this, and I happen to have a brand new printer that we can actually turn upside down and take a measurement on it. So hopefully that belt tension is a good reference for what we should be getting here. All right, so this is the Bambu P2S. We'll do the exact same thing and turn it on its side. And it has basically the exact same, there's a few little components that are a tiny bit different, but the same type of configuration, same belt type. And we can get a measurement on this one. Let's see what it is. So we are at around 5 millimeters. For the belt tension, I'll plug that in, see what it comes out to. Okay, so 5 millimeters is about 4.65 newtons. So it does register, which means that we're in much better shape than we are on that one. I might even shoot for just a hair more than 5. That's because over time the belt will stretch a little bit too. So, and loosen this screw off. 4.5, so it's not quite tight enough, just under regular spring tension there. I'll loosen the screw off, put this one in, just give a little bit of help, run the belt back and forth so we have good alignment, and tighten it back down. Okay, 5.3, 5.29, I think we're pretty good with that. So we're going to do the print calibration, and I'm going to do vibration. And I'll do auto bed leveling as well, just in case something shifted a little bit as well. So that'll be 12 minutes. Let that go. Okay, with the calibration complete, we can run the exact same tests. This one was the original before cleaning, and this is the one we just ran. And as you can see, they're both very similar. So not really any noticeable difference there. Again, the sides a little bit smoother, back again a little bit rougher, side again a bit smoother. I think part of the reason why the bottom's a bit worse is because it is pulling up a little bit away from the build plate. I have 3 walls on this print, and the print will tend to warp just a little bit. So based off of this, I say nope. The Z belt was nice to do, the cleaning was nice to do, but really hasn't made any noticeable difference. So now we have to move on to the other belts. All right, upper belt, 4.95. Lower belt, 4.96. Wow, both are actually quite loose. So it might seem like a pretty small difference. We've got 4.94, 4.95 millimeters on this one, and we've got about 5.5, 5.54 on the P2S. I'm going to loosen this up just a little bit, this side up just a little bit. So there are some springs in here that should automatically tension this. 5.13, there you go. This is still a little bit low on the top. 5.02. So I'm going to do what was recommended, and I'm going to adjust this a little bit tighter. Small amount of pressure there. .36, that's a good number. 5.37. We are good. I've done the calibration for vibration, and I did bed leveling again just to be safe. I did move the printer around quite a bit. What I'm going to do is switch to the other build plate, but I'm going to put glue on the build plate as well. Those other build plates are a little bit thicker, and if I put glue on, it should help to prevent the corners from lifting a little bit. We'll give that a try. With all the belts adjusted is slightly better, but it's not really good enough. Unfortunately, it's not where I think it should be. I don't think it's filament related, because we have some examples where it did print really well if it was just one in the center. So I have one last thing that I wanted to check, and it is that I'm running with the Revo right now in there, and maybe if I swap back to the standard Hotend, I can get the right results. For some reason, maybe it's not working properly. To be honest with you, it feels a little bit loose. Because this is only finger tight, and that silicone ring slips a little bit, and it's kind of hard to get access to it, it might not have been tight enough. Feels better. I'm holding the head in place because there's a little bit of movement there too. That feels much better. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I will swap out the Hotend So I'm gonna get this thing off, but before I do that, I have to make sure I turn the printer off. So let's just go with the stock because that's what it comes with, and we'll see what happens. So we'll run the same test again, and then I'm gonna put on the standard build plate, not the Bambu Super Tack as well. Just experimenting with a couple ideas of how to get this tight and loose, and I actually have this piece of silicone hose. I think I got this from Maker World. And you can just put it over top of there and use that. It tends to be a little bit easier to grip, and then also for loosening too. So the moment of truth here is the original one that we've been comparing against. All of those defects. And here is the version with the stock Hotend and all of the other stuff that we've done, including the build plate change as well. So you can see quite a bit of improvement there. The sides are also better. They started off a little bit better. The sides are quite a bit better now. The corners are better. No, basically the entire thing is better. So that is the regular speed. So here's the progressive slow, the model we're comparing against, and then here is the one with the stock Hotend with all of the changes. So you can see again quite a bit of difference, and you can also see, that's a bit tough to see there. You can see those VFAs in there. So much better. Very happy with that. I also went and I printed the same models, but I printed in PLA just to see what they would look like. And I actually think the PETG looks a little bit better, but it might just come down to the color and blue being a little bit easier to identify defects in here. And here are the PLA prints beside the green PETG prints, and they are so close, they're basically identical. If you bring this out into a normal environment, this is what you would see. So the print results are very good, and you can actually see some of those VFAs there on the slow print. That's the fast one. The slow prints tend to show those VFAs, vertical fine artifacts. Thank you for pointing out that I don't know what the heck I'm talking about in my last video, and obviously I've been listening to too much 6.7 and I legitimately have some brain rot going on. So those look pretty good. Okay, so we had a few contributing factors. One of them was the choice of build plate. Our parts were peeling up just a tiny bit around the edges there, around the corners, and it was causing a little bit worse defects near the bottom, so that makes sense. We also have the belts. They were obviously too loose, so we don't want loose belts, but there was also this. And so what I think had happened, one of the times I was putting this back in, I didn't snug it up. I wasn't able to snug it up completely tight. You know, you've got the silicone ring on here, and it kind of slips a little bit. So it probably is better if you can remove that ring and just snug it up right off of the brass. And then that makes it so it seats properly. So if that doesn't seat properly, even if it's off by tiny amount, you can get a bit of movement in there. And that's all that we need, just that tiny bit of movement to cause an issue. And unfortunately, that's what was happening, I think. So even though it was a combination of issues and each one of those needed to be solved, probably one of the bigger contributors was this not being completely snugged down, and it's super easy to do. So ideally, this would be something you tighten down with a tool. It would maybe go over top of here and snug it down, but wouldn't damage the brass. So there are some options I know on printables that can do that. So that was a little bit painful, but I think it was important to go step by step like that so that we know what kind of results we should expect by making these little changes. For example, on the belts, I was actually expecting far more of an improvement than we actually got. It was just very subtle. So that's important to note. Even though the belts are a little bit loose, it's not really going to have that much of an impact. So if you've been struggling with print quality and you've also solved some of those issues, please let us all know down in the comments down there below. And if you think you can improve on the results that I got as well, I'd be happy to hear from you as well. Thanks to my patrons for making these videos possible, and I hope you found this video helpful and that it can save you some time, filament, and also embarrassment. Take care, and I hope to see you on the next one.